Hi, I'm Karen Hollenbach, and this is the LinkedIn Marketer Podcast. Now, today I'm joined by Jennifer Woodward, who's going to share her approach to LinkedIn from clarity of purpose to showing up consistently. Welcome, Jennifer, or do you prefer Jen?
I think I'm Jen now.
Okay.
Are you Kaz?
I'm not Kaz, thanks for asking.
Thank you so much for having me.
At Think Bespoke, I help professionals and organisations make sense of LinkedIn with a framework I call the Elevate Map. It's simple, as you've heard me say before, and isn't it refreshing that there's something simple in life? It's about discovering what matters, refining your presence, connecting with your network, not selling to your network, and amplifying your influence. I believe small, consistent actions do really add up to meaningful long-term impact. Now, for my listeners, I want you to hear from thought leaders like Jen, who are part of my professional community, and they're confidently navigating LinkedIn. So we want to know how Jen got to this place. And it's my hope that the stories that you hear as part of this interview series and with Jen today will inspire you to take action on LinkedIn. Now, before we dive into the chat, Jen is such an interesting professional. So please do allow me to take the time to formally introduce Jennifer Woodward. She loves brands and the people and stories behind them. Storytelling is at the heart of her work, building trust and driving reputation through meaningful connections. She believes public perception is critical as reputation fuels growth for organisations. Oh, I love that. Goosebumps, anyone? And shapes every individual's personal brand. Jen's experience has taught her cutting through takes strategy, one of my favourite words, creativity, something I'm learning to embrace, and a finger on the pulse. Whether the goal is to win customers, donors, or influence for action. Now, really, at the heart of Jen's expertise and extensive experience is this idea of reputation management. And I'm sure she's going to talk to us about that today. And it's about delivering positive social and commercial outcomes. Yes, listeners, both of those things can exist together. Her career began in PR and marketing agencies with impressive brands like, now am I going to say this right, Jen? BenQ, BenQ.
Very good. BenQ.
Dell.
Yeah, it's a technology brand. It is a technology.
Sony, PlayStation, Foster's, Penfolds, and Virgin Australia, followed by a decade in-house at Procter & Gamble and Virgin Australia. Have I got that right?
Yeah. Yeah, I think it was 10 years. Yeah.
10 years. I know how time flies when you're having fun.
2 decades.
I know, right? Across these roles, Jen has amplified social impact, which is tricky, by engaging teams at every level and connecting them to organisational purpose. Today, as thought leadership engagement at Starlight Children's Foundation, and I know we're going to have different names for that, and we'll talk about, you will call it affectionately Starlight. And I remember when we've talked about this before, for the sake of LinkedIn, we called it Starlight Children's Foundation Australia. She amplifies the work of Starlight's CEO and team, empowering communities, partners, and supporters through strategic communication. Now, because of this, and I've added that, Starlight has seen significant growth on social media, especially LinkedIn, where storytelling drives results, in case you didn't know. Contributing to Starlight's mission to brighten the lives of seriously ill children and their families is deeply fulfilling for Jen, with countless inspiring stories to share about the children supported, Starlight's growth values, culture, and the creativity and innovation are woven into everything Jen and the Starlight team do. Wow, this is going to be a great chat. Welcome.
Well,
and
that was a
thank
pop
you.
up. I'm not sure I'm going to be able to live up to all of that.
Let's go.
I mean, we try.
All right.
Yeah,
So when you think about your present, I think it's easier for me to describe you than for you to describe you, and then we can just dive in. So when you think about
a
your
lot of
present,
people feel that way, don't they?
yeah, and I am an R about asking people to share a bio, but I think that sort of gets that out of the way. It lets people have context about who you are, and it really helps us move into the deeper conversation. I always like to go deep around these sorts of conversations because hopefully some of the insights and perspective that you share, Shane, I will let you talk in a minute, are really, that context will be really helpful. So when you think about your presence on LinkedIn, Jen, what's the one core message or impact that you want to be known for, and how did you arrive at that clarity? So we're just diving straight in.
Let it go. And I love that framework, can I just say, because no matter which way you cut it, it covers everything that you need to be thinking about when you're engaging on LinkedIn if you really want to make the most of it. But for me, I have to just put this out there right now. I'm too engaged in helping others with their LinkedIn. And if you visit mine, and please do, please join me and please connect. It's actually a little bit lackluster and needs a bit of work. So but I'm watching, and in order to actually help others, sometimes you have to see what they see. You have to want to know what they know. You want to have to be in their world, what inspires them, what motivates them, what's going to help them reach their outcomes, no matter what those outcomes are. So to answer your question, the people that I help, and I love helping people and lifting people, because as we say, sometimes it's hard to promote yourself or talk about yourself. And that's what this platform is. But it's also a platform to, have your say. And we love that about it. And those are the kinds of conversations that it allows. And that's why it's become such an amazing thought leadership platform, because there's healthy debate. I very rarely see people tearing each other down on it. Do you?
Yeah, it's a very, very good point. There are many other platforms that are spending time doing that. And LinkedIn, I think people maintain their professionalism.
Yes, that's right, because it's their reputation at the end of the day. Any comment you make, any move you make, either, our CEO Louise says, either underpins or undermines your brand, your company's brand, or your personal brand. And there's a lot of people that we can pin as, examples of that Coldplay concert, where people do silly things, or don't think before they speak or act, and it hurts. So, but for the people that I support, I think they're all great storytellers, and as from a background of PR, that's the essence of what makes people feel. And you promote this very heavily, I know, Karen. People don't respond to numbers. People feel things. People are motivated by stories. And if we don't think we're a good storyteller, then you might think you're not, but you might tell a great story about what you did on the weekend, or the wedding that you went to, and something funny happened, someone fell off a chair, and there you are telling a story. So, but there's a little bit more of a trick if you really, really want LinkedIn to work for you as a personal brand. Now, our team at Starlight looks after the Starlight brand, but I look after the personal brands, and we think about them as being a lot more powerful. And LinkedIn themselves will say that. They said it in 2003. I don't know. Are they saying it again? Are they still a personal brand?
Well, yeah, and I think I use Starlight as a best practice example of how to navigate the executive presence. And I pause on executive presence because I'm halfway through reading, I'm about 2/3 of the way through reading Brené Brown's book, Strong Ground, and she's just pulled apart what executive presence is. But in the context of this situation, it is really the senior leaders in an organization who are going to lead the conversation on behalf of the organization because of the acknowledgement that you've just said. Back in 2003, we knew that LinkedIn was always going to put forward or it's not even LinkedIn, it's humans connect better with humans on LinkedIn. And so there's this real pressure that I've seen in the last 3 years especially, and I'm sort of happy for the pressure because I love training executive teams, that people are more likely to engage with leaders of an organization on LinkedIn than they are the organizational page. And so I will use Starlight as an example and say, there's actually a dedicated expert within that organization that helps the leaders of that organization show up on LinkedIn, which people say, wow, can we have one of those? Can we?
To help them, in that sense. And they just can't do everything. And yet they're on it all the time. They're so, I just skipped to the end. But your question about time, if executive leaders have time because they see the value, then we all do. And we don't have to ask our teams. They want to be engaged. They are active, and they are, an army of advocates for Starlight. However, I will challenge what you're thinking there, because our LinkedIn page, our team that manages it, actually only told me yesterday that it is the most engaged platform. Like the people, it's achieved the most engagement in terms of the platforms that we manage. And you can't not comment on stories about, great stories that we have, the uplifting stories of children and their families going through the toughest times and yet having, the happiness of childhood given back to them. It's just so inspiring. And then you've got these fundraisers there is a fundraiser at the moment, hi Alex Barbas, who is running from Sydney to Perth and Perth to Sydney all in one go. I think he started in September and he's still going. And he's coming back very soon because he used to volunteer for our Starlight Express room in Perth. And he now works in Sydney. And he's just, an absolute gun of an athlete. But how can you not react to that? And how can you not praise that? So I think it's I'm just going to look at my 20 our top 26 posts across all our platforms, and we're across all of them, are all more highly engaged. You don't get to any other platform until you get to number 26 in terms of engagement. And it doesn't have as much reach, but it just absolutely nails engagement. And community management is another thing. For those corporate pages, who do you have, managing? Who is your voice? How have they been immersed in your voice? Are they connected? All of us at Starlight have to be connected to our purpose. We want to be, and we go into hospitals if we're office staff, a couple of times a year or more to volunteer, and we help out. And we hear those stories firsthand. And when you know something, when it's your story, you can tell it so authentically.
Yeah, it's beautiful. And I think there's something for listeners to think about, because when I originally started with this podcast many moons ago, I was very focused on the company page admin. So it's called the LinkedIn market. It was very much about the company page admin. And what I've seen is that there's this, and you've just mentioned it there too, is that you need to have the voice and be clear about the narrative from your company page. So I think organizations have got better at doing that. Certainly, I don't think all of them are achieving the success that you have because of your strong focus on storytelling. But then the shift has been that the company page admin is also being required to manage these other elements and to lead and partner sort of the thought leadership of the executive. So it's great to see your model where it's broadly separated and there is resource allocated to it. And I guess that means that
we're effective. And we, everyone has great skills at doing it all, and we all contribute. But I think the key is, we know that LinkedIn responds to the, is best, interacted with in the first 90 minutes, and that's what's going to get you reach. The more reach we get, the more people see it, the more we can work outside of our sphere and get more people interested, get more donors, and we do. And it's, sometimes I think about how do we really monetize LinkedIn? and why are we doing this and putting so much effort into it? And yes, it's a huge market platform for corporates and organizations. But what we see is people actually coming to us in our inbox saying, oh my gosh, I'd love to contribute to that. That's a great initiative. Your Healthier Futures initiative helping, seriously ill children visit clinics in Central Australia and remote communities. Wow, you do great work. I want to commit. Once we lost our car, it was stolen, the Starlight car. You would believe the interaction with it. People were, tagging other people. Have you seen this car? Pass this on, please. People were coming to us offering us rental cars, loan cars, cheap cars, and eventually, obviously, we covered pretty much the cost, I think, because it was never found. But it's incredible,
And you're really engaging that community spirit that exists and gives me faith in the human race at a tricky time in the world. And so I think if for people listening, what we're really exploring is discovering if LinkedIn is relevant for you. And I think this is testament to the story we're hearing about Starlight and how you and your team members, both from the page and the profiles of thought leaders, have really engaged in an extremely meaningful and relevant way for people on LinkedIn. So if you're leading a organization, whether it be a charitable organization or one driving social impact, go and follow Starlight's company page and the leaders' company pages. Louise will talk about, and there's probably a few others. And Jen's happy to say, look, I'm busy helping other people tend to their LinkedIn garden, so definitely come and say hello to me. And so can we talk about that LinkedIn garden, Jen? So when we're thinking about the profile, what do you think is really important if someone is representing their organisation, they want to take a leaf out of the Starlight playbook? What do you think is important to reflect sort of the thought leaders' expertise and values? And I'm talking really specifically about the way the profile is written and the sort of parts of the LinkedIn profile that you always keep an eye on and update.
Yeah, and sometimes I think less is more. You don't necessarily have to fill every piece of the platform. Be choiceful, and as you said, simplification. And it is hard to hero those things. But for example, Louise just won CEO of the Year in CEO Magazine's not-for-profits in the awards section, and she also won the award for the CEO Executive of the Year in business in general, and it's huge. And I said, let's celebrate this. She's all for celebration, but sometimes as we say, it's hard to promote yourself. And then she thought, if I don't celebrate and thank these awards, the initiative, and all the judges that put all this time into it, then I'm not honouring the time and effort that this initiative takes. And so off I go. And she did a great job of lifting others as well. She met some amazing judges who then she became a judge in 2025 this year. And she had an incredible time and made some great connections. And her garden is never full. Like she never doesn't respond to people. She has a garden full of, her 20 plus years at Starlight and her marketing years before that. And she keeps up with them. Plus, she's always open to meeting new people. But what I would say about that is, for people that are looking to meet new people, and I'm jumping to the who do you connect with part, but make sure that you give before you ask. I just think it's a lovely way to open a conversation, or just acknowledge and take a really personal approach to the way that you craft a LinkedIn message, as you would a cold email or a cold phone call. I love what you do. I've helped in this way, or I have a connection with Starlight in this way. I'd love to help. And everyone has a connection with Starlight, by the way. You can't, anyone that I tell, they go, oh, you work for Starlight. Oh, my sister's cousin Douglas' friend was in hospital. Oh, my niece or my child. I heard, and the captions were so great. And I've seen I've seen your stuff on YouTube, and it's my kids are watching, so engaging. My over 16 kids. That's a whole different bucket. No, we're approved. We're great. But Yeah, and just be relevant to that person, and they will open up to you. And if there's a mutually beneficial opportunity, a meeting will follow. Or maybe you don't even need a meeting. Maybe it's the one thing I do love doing is lifting up partners, and that's come a long way because I think as more people are joining LinkedIn from our organisation, from our partnerships, they're realising that you can't. It's not just an advertising platform. So
Yes.
it's like,
Yes.
hey, we did this. Let's shout about it on LinkedIn, and it's part of our agreement that we're gonna, kumbaya it. And they recognise, and we've done a really great job of connecting them to our purpose, and then they have a story to tell as well.
Yeah.
And they've become storytellers, and we help them, and they help us. And I learned that from my Virgin Australia days, when travel is an experience. We're not selling seats; we are selling the travel experience. Tell us about that location and stuff that's happened there. Tell us about Starlight was it still is a major partner, and I looked after them while I was at Virgin. And the stories that we had were of children going on their wishes, and they chose that travel wish, and travel was the most asked for, wished for from seriously ill children. Still is. And Nick Henderson changed the game on that and was way ahead of the curve. Hello. And as you go and as LinkedIn has grown, I think if you're not watching constantly, you're not going to, as you say, cut through. And I will add to that, the lead on any post, because that's all you see, just as a tidbit, we are finding is, really changes the level of engagement and impressions and likes and all the things.
Can you talk to us more about that? Because if someone's tuning in today, and you and I talked about this in preparation for this episode, we really want to make this relevant for people at the start of their LinkedIn journey, organisations who are really inspired by the work that Starlight's doing and thinking about, well, what's our version of that? So I'd love you to talk about what you mean by that. And then I also want to use those CEO awards, congratulations, Louise, as an example of what I would recommend if someone's won an award at that level, where they would fit on your LinkedIn profile. Now, whether or not Louise chooses to do that or not is secondary to
I love
really
the featured. I love the featured, and I love the
yeah
sections. If especially if it's recent, it should be there. All your education should be. It's almost like a digital resume, right?
Yeah.
And it's not for that purpose anymore, but it still is. It's still.
It's becoming more that way, I think. I know recruiters use it that way, and we know Louise isn't going anywhere anytime soon. But it's this featured section, I think, is a move. It's like your point about being on the pulse. So it's on the pulse with your posting, and I really do want to talk about what you meant by that opening line in a moment. But then it's also, if she's been recognised for those awards, putting them in the featured section, maybe tweaking the headline of her LinkedIn profile slightly, and also thinking about how she folds that into the way she writes a better self in the about section. So it's a really significant milestone to be recognised in that way. And I'd imagine there was probably also a post with a link to the magazine where that post could be featured at the top of her profile. So let's sway back to your point.
Remind me to tell you about the link to the magazine, because there's something about that.
Oh, yes, a story. We love a good story. Do tell.
Oh, it's not a story. It's more, sometimes they have, you got to be careful of the walls. And I still don't know whether they
gated.
They have paywalls but
the firewalls, the AFR do that a lot, and it's tricky. And sometimes in a featured, what you can do is put the link in, pull up your own visual with a screenshot, and it's prominent there. And that's like, people aren't necessarily going to click into it. So don't always necessarily be afraid of gated content. It depends on what part of your profile it's in. But of course, you're not going to, if you're sharing articles every week, you're not going to be sharing gated content in posts.
No, one of Louise's best performing posts, and it's also because of the content, because she was sharing such profound information about, the sector of the charity sector and in business in general, was her holding up F&P magazine fundraising. And so she used to not like photos of herself on her own LinkedIn. And we've come to a point where she realizes that just celebrating something like that, holding up the magazine, but then obviously putting the PDF somewhere else.
Yeah, and it's interesting, isn't it? Because that's a good workaround. And even someone with her sort of public persona doesn't like photos of herself. And I think it's perfectly natural. I don't meet many people that say, oh, yeah, I love having photos of myself taken and I love splashing it all over LinkedIn. And I think with if we want to show up,
touch it up, a little bit of retouching.
Well, I'm seeing a lot of, I'm not saying this about Louise's profile. I have no idea about her profile photo, but I'm seeing a lot of touched up AI profile photos at the moment.
But your profile and your tone of voice is something that people are saying that AI is getting it. It's never going to get it, you know? Yeah. I'm just keeping my job here. But no.
Well, it's why I'm doing this podcast too and these interviews, because I think the story you're really telling us here is everything about what you do is interesting. You need to share your perspective and you need to think about it in the context of a story, not a sort of promotional aspect, but a relational aspect. And I do think Starlight's uniquely positioned because your stories are so important. So I think we do have to sort of realize that for people listening, that if they work for a dry and boring organization, might be time to look for a new job. But, you know, when you work for an organization that your heart and your head is aligned and you are making a real difference in the world, it really shows in how you show up on LinkedIn and the stories that you share.
It does. And we want to share our learnings for everyone's benefit, especially for the benefit of the sector, because it's not about fighting for the piece of your pie. It's about growing the pie, because the sector is critical and it fills the gaps that
increasingly.
Yes. So it needs to be here for the future. What was I going to say? And Starlight stories aren't just about the children that we support. They're about the people behind the children we support. We share information and learnings of our positivity and our positive culture. We've been in the business of positivity since we started, because that's what we do. We lift the spirits of children. We give them happiness when, you know, they're in the darkest of times. Our logo is a child reaching for the star, reaching for that bright side of the star. But we talk about innovation as well, because sometimes the perception is that, you know, charities are a step into the slow lane. Absolutely not. We're in eternal startup mode, and the innovative nature of our business comes from the positivity and the ability to have robust debate, because when you've studied positive psychology, nothing is personal. And, you know, those automatic negative thoughts, we call them ants, can be flipped, because you know that that person that you're working with knows the same thing as you do. And the thing that they know is, don't assume what I'm saying is on the negative. Assume what I'm saying is for the benefit of you. And so especially at CEO and executive level, we share our learnings. And Louise does, you know, conferences all over Australia. She's a member of the CCA board, Community Council for Australia. She's a member of the Stanford Australia board. She is just, she gives. And I think that is what makes a good first line. What was that segue?
Yes, nice segue.
So what does your audience want to hear is the way you need to start. So you can write your post on what your information is, what your message is, what you want to share, who you want to thank, who you want to elevate, because elevating other people is great for the platform too. And then read it again and see if there's something in there that is going to spark the interest of the audience, and move it up and say it out loud. You know, Louise reads her LinkedIn messages like this, and even though it's come from her own mind, reading it out loud it helps you understand whether someone else is going to be able to understand it too. But think about, so one of the ones that she wrote about pay what it takes, which is about the assumption that charities that you know, when donors are donating or the community is donating, they want all their dollars to go to the children and supporting the children. But sometimes people question the infrastructure or the payment that the inclusion of the funds needed to be sustainable, to fund people, technology,
all the things.
All the things.
Yeah.
And the way that she positioned it was, you wouldn't buy a pizza, or you wouldn't go to a restaurant and eat a pizza and not pay or refuse to pay for the wages of the staff that made it and the cost of running the oven? Would you? Makes people think, what is she talking about? No, I wouldn't do that. Then, why is it that sometimes the perception in the charity sector is that we don't need to pay those overhead costs? We absolutely do. If we want these charities to be around for the future, big, small, developing, whatever it is, we want to support that cause, we must pay what it takes. And it was something that it's fueled by a whole other group, but Starlight has agreed to support that particular message. And it was a photo of a cute child eating a pizza. And it's one of her, highest performing posts. And don't get me wrong, highest performing and impressions and all that isn't success. What success is actually making people think to the point where they want to act. And that is why they engaged with Louise. And that is why she sat there commenting frantically to make sure that she, acknowledges that people are on board.
Yeah.
And what are you going to do about it? There's an organisation called Pay What It Takes. They've got a petition, yada, yada.
And reputation is built over time.
Who does that? So she lived that, she told people when I donate, and then everyone else started saying, oh, yeah, when I donate, I'm happy to just pay for the cost because I want them to survive. And they've got great people that are invested and that are passionate about the cause, etc.
And I think with reputation management, this idea that reputation is built over time is that when Louise steps onto the platform and leads that conversation, she is moving that movement forward because she's lived her values through the way she turns up on LinkedIn over time. And so that is the power of thought leadership, to make this conscious and intentional decision about the contribution you would like to make to your community. Now, for those people listening, we are absolutely in the final step of the Elevate map, which is amplify. And I don't want to scare anyone. What I want to do is absolutely inspire you, and for this to plant seeds in your mind about what does this look like for me? What does this look like for our organization? Of course, everyone's going to rush over and follow the Starlight page and Louise. I want to take a step back. I would love to know, when we're thinking about this idea of networking, so we've discovered LinkedIn is the platform for us. We know that for Starlight, the company page is performing better than other social media platforms. So it's a living example of the power of this platform. So we know we need to be on this platform.
Engagement.
I think
success. That's
absolutely. And people sort of understanding what you do and educating them, and community engagement, the community management of the page. So we've talked about the LinkedIn profile in terms of the featured section, celebrating awards, working around the paywalls. You had a tricky example of that. What about networking? So you mentioned this right at the start, this relational aspect, and being sort of you didn't say this, but you were coming from this place of a generosity of spirit and sort of how you can network with people on LinkedIn. So networking on LinkedIn can feel random for many people, and they're not sure, well, I don't know that person, or I do know that person. What intentional steps do you recommend to build meaningful relationships rather than just add connections on LinkedIn?
Yeah, and I remember when you supported me back in COVID, taught me everything I know. We were having this discussion about what is success, and networking might be one of people's goals. Maybe they want to really grow their network, and from Louise's perspective, that obviously opens doors to more opportunities for Starlight. And as I said before, the reputation of the CEO and her, she builds those connections, passes them to the team passes them back, etc. Underpins or undermines the brand, and she's doing a lot of underpinning. And so is everyone at Starlight that's now joined. However, I'm also helping my sister, who's actually a personal trainer at EP, and she was so confused.
What's EP? Exercise physiologist?
Physiologist. Yeah. She's cool. She's a lot younger than me, but she teaches me a lot too. And I said, you've got to get on this platform because the kind of people that I think you help, and she's maturing in her approach, and she's got a lot to offer. are on this platform. And she's like, well, yeah, I don't know. And I'm like, okay, firstly, start off with the people that you already know. You already have a CEO of the all the gyms that you rent to, train your clients. You already have a CEO of the competitions that you've entered. You have actually international networks, because she's competed internationally.
Wow.
There you go, and they're there. And I look, and I'm helping her. You have your clients, some of whom have organizations which have really close teams that they influence, or big organizations, which means that they're connected in ways that they can help you as well. You are next to a golf course, for example, in one of your gyms. Have you reached out to them in person firstly? She's pretty timeable. But also find out who runs that. And, she's like, I can't even take on any more clients. I'm so busy. I'm like, well, that means you're growing your business. And then, you've got 2 team members already, you can get more. So reach out to those that you've already got. Reach out to, those who are relevant to your industry, because they're going to be talking your language. So is there an industry organization? For example, Louise's is the CCA. Then I would say,
you mean like the governing body or the sort of the peak body? Yeah, I always think that's a great suggestion to be following. Yeah.
Ours is the Third Sector, For Purpose magazine, all these sector specific things. But that's talking to the people that we already talked to. Go further. Who else would be interested in what Louise has to say, for example? CEO magazine, Financial Review journalists.
Yeah.
I could keep going. Then you want to you want to find top voices. Why? Because they're on the pulse, and they are trending always, and they have a different perspective for everything. And they're not there for, just because they got there. They're there because they're saying inspiring, meaningful, timely, relevant, newsworthy things that people connect with. So I would go to them. And what was my last one?
And can I just say something on top voices for people listening? So top voices are identified on LinkedIn by LinkedIn as people who are leading the conversation in their sector. And so that's why Jen's recommending you really follow them and engage with them, because of the fact that they've already been identified as someone who's really active and cool, having a positive impact.
I love Simon Sinek's posts. I could read them all day. The other one was the final thing I would do is, think about your future goals. So who do you want to connect? Who could help you in the future? And again, make it a mutually beneficial approach, but also think about the mutual benefit for them to connect with you. So, I'm never afraid to reach out to people, but that's because I've just built the courage. It takes time. And the more you're on it, the more you talk. What about people that comment on your posts?
Yeah.
They're interested in you. They saw you. You might not know who they are. If they've been positive, like it, send a message. Hey, great to be connected. How do you do? What do you do?
And it's that sort of relational.
Do the what do you do? But you might get there.
No, that's helpful. I think that's really helpful for people. And I think the thing to consider is if you have a free LinkedIn account, LinkedIn's now restricting your invitations to connect. So if you don't want to invest,
that was the other one.
Yeah, well, it's fine though. If you don't want to invest in a paid,
is it $90?
It's about up to about $500 a year. It's sort of between 60 and 90 a month, depending on which one you choose. Yeah, it's really gone up. And so what I recommend with that is to absolutely follow that advice. Follow these people if you only have a LinkedIn free account, which is fine. And if you're anything like me and you've got the paid account, I will have a look who's following me over, every sort of 2 or 3 weeks, and I'll probably send an invitation to connect, especially if you're based in Australia or New Zealand. And then, I'm sure Louise and others do things like that. And then you can pay to play. I mean, all these platforms are looking for a pay to play model now since LinkedIn was taken over by Microsoft. That's, what they're trying to do. But I think you can follow the pages, follow the people, and then I think you get something like 5 free a month. You can use that strategically, or you can just spend a really good solid month trialing it. Pardon?
Oh, the free premium. Yeah, you get free premium. You don't get free boosts, do you?
No.
Really?
But
Yeah,
no, but you
help.
yeah, I don't know. So
We don't spend our
yeah, so
$100.
what Jen's talking about for listeners is that LinkedIn's really, from a thought leadership perspective, it's now encouraging people who are publishing newsletters from their profiles, or maybe they're a top voice, or maybe they're really active on LinkedIn. It will encourage you to boost particular posts. Sounds like Facebook language, doesn't it? And so no freebies for boosting. There's a lot of pay to play. And LinkedIn's also now got the page premium. So it's trying to add more features there that are paid. But I think that you can still broadly navigate LinkedIn for free. It's once you move into this networking stage and you're wanting to really expand your connections that you have to think about whether it's worth the investment, which is why I say to people, just trial it for 30 days. Make sure you've followed you've worked out whether it's right for you in the discover step. You've refined your profile and made sure it reflects you and reflects who you are, where you're heading, and your professional goals. And then you can
think of it as a chore. Like, think of it as if you bumped into someone in the street. Do it over a coffee when you're waiting for your coffee.
It's great advice.
Pretty quick.
Yeah,
Australia's so quick, isn't it?
Yeah.
I don't know. When else? In your life, I don't know. When sometimes
I talk about
it up as a research tool.
Yeah, that's an interesting point, because
that organization.
I think that 60% of people on LinkedIn are on there as anonymous, using it as a research tool. And I talk to people about this idea of the thoughtful 15 now. So spending 15 minutes a week on LinkedIn for the purpose of reading their favorite top voice, curating their news feed, connecting with people they might have met that week, having a look at their notifications. And there is a way, if you clean up or curate your LinkedIn home feed or news feed, you can sidestep the algorithm by having notifications. So following and ringing the bell of people and pages that you're interested in. And so that can be a really good time saver if you don't really want to spend more than 15 minutes or so a week on LinkedIn. That's a way to pick. And it's also just for a way to people.
Or you get a bit overwhelmed.
Let's
get a bit tricky for a second.
Yes.
When you're on your desktop, the little trending section on the corner where there's LinkedIn news and trending topics.
Yes.
If you relate to and are involved in or work for any of those topics, go in and comment on that if you feel you have a perspective, because those interactions, it's not just about posts, it's about interacting and contributing to the conversation, or igniting debate, healthy debate.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah,
and I think that's a great suggestion, because I think if people are tentative and wondering and maybe don't want to share their perspective or their point of view yet, and they're not a CEO, or they might be an emerging leader, or they definitely have subject matter expertise, that commenting and going to that. So what we're talking about, Jen's described, when you're on the desktop, on the right-hand side, when you've sort of got the home feed in front of you, on the right-hand side, sort of like it was on the platform previously called Twitter, up on the right-hand side, sort of trending topics, dive in and have a look there. And I think that's a lovely segue to amplifying your influence. So I think you've really shared a lot of very useful insights with us about showing up and sharing your perspective on LinkedIn. The question I've really got now is, how do you how did your sort of team stay consistent on LinkedIn when life and work get busy?
I think if you find that you can benefit from integrating it into your workday, we've got a partnerships team, for example, and we are always looking to innovate in that space and gain new partnerships. And sometimes you'll have a conversation, and then you'll be on LinkedIn looking at, I have a connection there. Who else is there? So who looks after CSR? Who looks after community engagement? So you might use it, in your everyday. And I certainly have found that I'm using it in my everyday. Again, my profile needs a bit of work. Please encourage me to use it.
You're like the plumber or the builder, or creates these beautiful things.
Isn't it sad? I'll get there. And we do so many great things. It would be so easy to just share. But you kind of got to share in a meaningful way with your own thoughts and perspective. Otherwise, it's kind of talking to no one.
And make it part of your work day.
make fun of your work day, but also the 15 I love, the
Yeah.
coffee I love.
Yeah.
I can't predict what little gaps people have. I certainly don't have many. You certainly don't
Yeah.
have many. But maybe, instead of we love personal relationships. We love technology to enable the human. But sometimes a message that just sits there is enabling the human. Reaching out to someone on LinkedIn is enabling the human because it's sitting there waiting for you and it's not interrupting when you don't need it to be.
Yeah.
But yeah, all those things. It's definitely a research tool. It's definitely finger on the pulse. It's like reading the newspaper almost. I don't see much fake news. People
Yeah,
would
well, it's interesting you say that
people
because
would pull that out. I think
yeah, a
it's
lot of
news feed.
professionals. Yeah, a lot of professionals I've tried say that it is their industry news. That's where, and they use it for research. So like you do, and that's where if you chose to simply have a LinkedIn profile that represented you, and then to curate your home feed, I think you'd be in a stronger position in business
Where else
meetings,
can you
interviews.
learn from
Yeah,
that level of people?
yeah,
Where else can you learn from Brene Brown? And
yeah.
and
Apart from reading a book or listening to an audiobook.
you are
I'm
very
a
good, my friend. I've done leadership. Where's my book?
the Dare to Lead.
Dare to lead. I'm
You would
daring.
love Strong Grounds. Strong Grounds Dare to
Yeah, I
Lead
agree.
too in brackets, and it's phenomenal. And it sort of starts with this story about she has a fall. She has some sort of injury related to pickleball, which you may or may not have heard her talk
Love
about.
pickleball.
And so she
Addicted.
talks about the going to see this personal trainer and all these sort of insights. It's a very good story that I'm not going to tell because it's Brené Brown's to tell at the start of her book.
But I love that she stands for one thing and everything
Yeah.
else branches off that. And that is vulnerability or, being brave. And
Well, she rethinks vulnerability. She talks about it differently in this book.
does
I
she?
think she doesn't throw out anything that she's talked about, but she not rethinks, but
She's learned from the feedback that she's got on what she's done so far, right?
yeah, she
'Cause I've seen her
reframes
say
it. And I
vulnerable.
think we're in turbulent times, so I think she's being cognizant of reframing it in the context of that. Now, you have been very generous with your time, so before we finish, I do
And you
want
should
to have
never
a
talk for this long. People get bored. I'm not bored of you.
oh well, it's interesting. That's a funny comment. That's an interesting comment because when I first launched this podcast, they were like 5 or 10 minute episodes. I was like, sorry, you can't take me on a walk. But now they're longer. I think we're sort of mixed. Yeah, you can take us on a walk. Hope you're enjoying the view as you look out across something interesting. So looking to the future.
I hope you've been able to give, some easy to follow, healthy startup advice, as well as some deeper thinking about how you could actually really gain from it. Because I love. We'll help anyone. We'll share anything because it's everyone deserves to be able to connect and win from something that's been put out there for free, sort of.
Yeah, I agree. Jen, you've been so generous with your time. Before we sign off, if you had to choose one piece of advice, and I know you've already given us lots of advice, but if we think about what's powerful on LinkedIn is small but consistent actions making sort of a big difference over time, what would be your advice to a thought leader who's definitely going to go and follow the leads and think about how they want to show up on LinkedIn? What would, from a reputation management point of view, if we could frame it in those terms, given that's your expertise, what should they be thinking about as they finish their walk and go on to LinkedIn and take some action?
Oof. I think it is that it's that think about who you want to talk to, who you want to influence. And if you want to make the biggest influence, share and tell a story. That was a lot in one. But sharing is very much the platform's vibe. And just know your audience so that you can tell the story the way that they're going to be able to connect to it and feel something and be, influenced by you and remember you if that's what you're after. Or if you're not, at least you have given something to someone else that, because you might get it back one day, and you often do. Have one in the bank. They'll think, oh, that person was really generous with that information, and that's the topic that they talk about. I go to them for some info about that topic, but also I'll go to them and I'll offer them, support in this area. People are generous. I think the platform is kind and measured, and so I'd say just go for it. But tell that story. Don't waffle like we are. You don't waffle. Make it short. Make it sharp. People are busy. Tell a story. Tell it quickly. Lead with the most interesting point. The pizza.
Jen,
Would you refuse to pay for a pizza?
I want to,
but not.
It's all about being wonderfully human, and we'll finish there. And I think that thank you, Jen,
and
for being
real,
with us
be
today.
Real. Don't so much AI fake business.
Yeah.
Don't trust AI to write anything for you. Use it, read it, change it, make it you.
So storytelling is the vibe. You heard it here first. Kindness is everything. LinkedIn is a kind platform. I wholeheartedly agree. So thank you for listening to the LinkedIn
Karen.
Marketer Podcast.
You're awesome. And if anyone needs help, Karen, talk me everything.
I hope today's conversation.
Thank you very much, Karen. You take care. Thank you. Thank you for joining, everyone.
So I hope today's conversation gave you a fresh way to think about LinkedIn. For those of you who are listening, I think this is officially our longest podcast interview ever. And I know you're going to enjoy this chat as much as I have. Take us on 2 walks if you need to. And remember that the Elevate map and navigating LinkedIn is all about discovering what matters. Is this a platform for you? Decide that first. Refine your presence. Look at your profile. Is it representing you, the whole you, the reason you want to show up in the world, the impact that you want to make, the difference that you want to make? Connect with your network. This episode has been packed with tips on how to do that wherever you are on your LinkedIn journey. Amplify your influence. You've got some profile tips. You've got some company page tips here from Jen. Storytelling, storytelling, storytelling. Small steps taken consistently really do make an impact. If you'd like to learn more about the Elevate map, head over to Think Bespoke's website. I'm Karen Hollenbach. See you next time.